guys, what is up? It's the J&J Hockey Podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm just there.
And today we have a pretty packed podcast. We will be talking about a new trade that just went down, what the Blues are going to do due to that trade. We're going to be doing some rumors with the Bruins, Matt Murray, Oilers, among other teams. And then also doing our conference final picks. So Josiah, why don't you start us off?
What do you want to start with?
I don't care. Just go.
So, for the conference finals, Philly was eliminated by New York Islanders. So, the conference finals they're all being played at Edmonton now in Rogers Place. The conference finals are Tampa Bay and the New York Islanders, and then Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars.
Yep.
I think not.
So, offense, defense, goaltending, intangibles, just like we've done for the past two rounds.
Sure. I think we'll start with the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
For the Eastern Conference, it's a no-brainer. Offense goes to Tampa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They guaranteed.
Even with Stammer out, the Islanders don't have a single top-line player on their team, I don't think.
Barzal.
Except for, I guess, Barzal, but that'd be about it. The rest of their players are like middle six guys.
Yeah.
Maybe okay second-liners. They just have a lot of okay second-liners. Like, they have
and obviously really good coaching. And we've seen how, like, the Islanders, you're probably going to see a trend with the Islanders is that we think the Islanders are probably worse in every category. But that's what I also thought with Philly and Washington as well. And Philly and Islanders took that out as well. So these projections don't seem to matter that much to them.
Then for defense, I say goes to Tampa also. I don't know. Any thoughts about that for you?
No, definitely Islanders for me. This is how the Islanders have gotten this far, is by playing great defense.
I think,
with the exception of the Philly series, because all three of Philly's wins came in OT. I think that is a major intangible. We'll get to that later. But other than that, I think they don't have the personnel. If you're just talking personnel, I get Tampa. Like, Victor Hedman alone probably wins them personnel. But
yeah, defense, and then they also have Ryan McDonough, Mikael Sergev.
Yeah,
and
but Tampa
goaltending, it's for sure also Tampa.
Tampa as a team is not nearly as good defensively as New York. And as I've said before, the reason why is coaching. Like, Trotz, Lamoriello, and all their other coaching staff is the best in the league now, in my opinion. I feel like if you could get this Islanders team to the conference finals, you're like, I don't know if Barry Trotz was nominated for Jack Adams this year. But if there was like
no, he's not.
Okay. If there's a Jack Adams for the playoffs, though, I'd be voting Trotz in for sure.
Yeah, because in my opinion, like, there's lots of teams that have better personnel than this team, and they didn't even make it past the playing round. Like Winnipeg.
New York just went through two of them.
Yeah, and also like Winnipeg, even like New York personnel compares to like Montreal. They seem to have like the same personnel as like Montreal.
Yep.
Like, I wouldn't say that, and if anything, Montreal's forward personnel is better, and defense is almost equal in personnel. In actual how they play, it goes to the Islanders.
Yep.
In personnel, though, the Islanders are probably the worst, if not one of the worst, if not the worst in the playoffs. Maybe they're better than the Blackhawks.
Oh yeah. Just in the playoffs now, like, all three of the other teams are elite teams, or at least borderline elite in the case of Dallas. But the Islanders are the only team, I don't know where to classify them, because they're not a team that you look at and they're like, oh, they're like really elite. But
for sure,
they're far, aren't they?
And then for intangibles, I mean,
we skipped goaltending.
Well, I said goaltending already, but I said for sure it's Lightning. For backup, it goes to New York, but New York has more of like a tandem style, sort of.
Yeah, the Islanders' goaltending is really solid. That's, again, due to their goalie coach, Mitch Korn, as we've talked about him many times before. But I still have to give it to Tampa, because Vasilevsky is one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the league right now. Voted for the Vezina again this year. I don't think he'll win, and I don't think he deserves to win either this year. Definitely I'm going to be giving it to Hellebuck, as we talked about that in our award predictions.
I think that Vasilevsky should even be in the finalists, but...
Yeah, but no matter what way you slice it, he's still in, the top 5, right? So...
I guess, yeah.
So, yeah, I still have to
think of at least 2 goalies that are more deserving of the title, but... Anyways.
Yeah, alright. Goaltending, or not goaltending, intangibles. I think this one is really tough, but I do have to give it to Islanders. I think the fact that they've gotten this far, they're a lot more loosened up than the Lightning are. In fact, the Lightning are probably the most uptight team right now. If you think about it, Vegas would be the only team competing for them that's this far in the playoffs. Because Tampa probably should have won a cup by now. In 2015 when they lost to Chicago, that was understandable. Chicago was this, playoff powerhouse then. And Tampa was kind of this, young, up-and-coming team that had just started, really just started to do well just a couple years before that. But now, Tampa is that Chicago team without the Stanley Cups.
They're sort of like the... I look at them and Toronto as the Detroit Red Wings of the 90s.
Yeah.
Because they had an amazing team, but they couldn't win the cup. No, more so Toronto than Tampa, because at least Tampa's made the conference finals a couple times.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter if you don't win the cup, though. And Tampa has had better personnel and longer time. Toronto has only been a contender 3-4 years. Tampa's been a contender 6.
I would almost say, though, that at least that Tampa's made the finals versus Toronto hasn't even made it past Game 7 of games. You would have thought at least that Toronto would have made the conference finals back now. If not won the cup.
Well, I think Tampa's also had better personnel as well. I feel like Toronto has had... Lamoriello was a pretty good GM. I think his biggest mistake was probably hiring Babcock to that long-term contract. I feel like, in the end, it didn't work out too well. He did get that team to the first round against Washington, and that was the only time where they lost, and it was really understandable. In fact, a lot of people, including me, were impressed that they even pushed Washington to 6 games. They were not. They were supposed to get swept that year, because Washington was that powerhouse, and Toronto, they had rookie Matthews, rookie Marner. They had that class of rookies, right? Who was just leading them. All right, so we're, barely talking about the actual intangibles here. So, I still give it to the Islanders, and then I feel like the Islanders also have the edge in coaching, so...
Yeah, I can agree with you there.
Okay, so offense, Lightning, defense, Islanders, goaltending, Lightning, and intangibles, Islanders. Who's your series picks?
I think Tampa will win the cup this year now that Colorado's knocked out.
Yeah.
I feel like the only competition for Tampa with the cup this year was Colorado. Obviously, Dallas disposed of them in 7 games.
I think the Vegas-Tampa final would be really good, and I think Vegas would push them.
I don't think that Vegas can compete with them, in my opinion. I think that it could be, it could be a sweep, but I'm going to say Tampa in 6.
Yeah, I am too. We can't underestimate the Islanders anymore. Based on personnel, the Islanders shouldn't even be here, and if they were, it would be a sweep. But based on how they've been playing, it's got to be 6 games. I think Tampa's talent is going to overwhelm them, though, at some point.
And in this Tampa, look at how good Tampa's doing now. They disposed of the President's Trophy winner and also made Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals last year in just 5 games when they got rid of the Bruins.
Lightning didn't make Game 7 of the Cup Final last year.
Nope, the Bruins did. They disposed of the Boston Bruins in 5 games.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so Western Conference, we got Vegas, Dallas. This one is going to be a fun series. Keep in mind, Dallas won the first game. It was a shutout and a very close game. Dallas only scored, I think it was 1 or 2 goals or whatever it was.
Well, the shots were 25-25, and John Klingberg had the only goal. Yeah,
so 1-0 shots even. That just goes show this one, if they keep playing like that, it's going to go 7. And, because both teams, Vegas, Vegas is, like, I kind of feel bad for them. Like, they've had a run of, like, not being able to score here, eh? Like, 4 games, and they've only been able to get, like, 2 goals.
Vegas or Dallas?
On an actual goalie. On an actual goalie, that is. So, they've been... I feel like offense, I was going to give it to Vegas. Now I'm not so sure, because that offense is not producing right now. Like, both of the goals Vegas had against the Demko in the last series, and we're going to have to pay our dues to Demko, because that was some of the most amazing rookie performance, just player performance, period, we've ever seen in the NHL. Like,
I mean, honestly, I feel so bad because because if the Canucks had even gotten a midi-court offense going, then they could have, like, with the way Marchand was playing, they could have won the cup.
That save by Lehner, though, Besser had that one. If they had scored that, I think Vancouver probably wins the game.
Yeah, but it was kind of Miller's fault that they lost in a way because Miller decided, let's go get a penalty. 5 minutes left, game tied.
Yeah, well, Vegas would have scored eventually. Like, it was going to happen. Vancouver was not getting any shots off. They weren't producing any offense at all. So Vegas was eventually going to score. So I don't think you can look at it as just JT Miller's fault. Don't forget, Vegas took a penalty like 3 minutes before that, and the Vancouver power play failed to capitalize. So... Anyway, it's not about that. So I think I'm gonna give offense Dallas, but it's gonna be
I still don't know, but
neither team has a good offense, like, or not a great offense anyway.
Both teams are older teams.
I'm just gonna say equal then. I'm just gonna say an equal on offense.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Defense, now this is both teams' bread and butter, so I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Dallas. They were able to, like, rein in the Colorado offense when they needed to the most, whereas Vegas just had to deal with the Vancouver offense that couldn't get anything going at all. So, for those reasons...
The way I look at it is Vegas has Theodore, their number one, and the Stars have Heiskanen. And Heiskanen is, I would say, better than Theodore by a good amount.
No, Theodore, like, dark horse Norrie candidate, dark horse Conn Smythe this year. He has been absolutely amazing. And Vegas would not be here right now. Vancouver would have already beaten them if Theodore wasn't on Vegas. I don't think Dallas can say that about Heiskanen. So
Heiskanen is the third leading playoff scorer. He's a defenseman. He's playing 25 minutes a night, and he's great defensively. I think that's all I need to say for us to realize that
what's
Theodore
your
compared to
definition
that.
of great defense? Is it just plus minus? Because that's not a very accurate stat.
No, I'm saying that, like, Heiskanen is playing like 25 minutes plus a game. He's got 20 points now in the playoffs.
Okay.
He is good defensively, like, right? So I think that, like, NHL.com made him their Conn Smythe Trophy pick, which if Dallas makes it to the finals, even if they don't win, I could totally see that.
Yeah,
with
well, that's
McKinnon gone.
They still have to get past this Vegas team. So I don't know. Defense, I'm probably gonna say equal as well.
I'd say Dallas, to be honest, because Heiskanen has the edge over over Theodore. And then who else does Vegas have that can compare to John Klingberg?
Schmidt's pretty good. He's better defensively anyway.
I guess, but Vegas doesn't really have, like...
Yeah, but we're talking about defense here, not offense from the defense.
All right. Well, I guess...
Goaltending, this one's really tough too. Both teams have a great 1 and 2.
I think Vegas is better in terms of this.
I'm going to go Dallas. Khudobin is a really good backup. He's not better than Fleury, but he is really the best of a typical backup that you can get. And in my mind, Bishop's a better starter than Lehner. So
I think Lehner's been better because not only has he edged out Fleury, who's quite a good goalie, he got 3 shutouts versus the Canucks.
Like, he's not playing like typical Fleury here. So
not to mention, Bishop isn't even playing. Godobin was the one playing for like most of the second round and stuff. So I think goaltending goes to Vegas. But
Yeah, if that's the case, if Godobin's starting, then for sure Vegas. If Bishop's starting, then I'm gonna go Dallas.
well, I think they have that Vegas has a better backup, and starter is almost equal.
Yeah, but what matters is the starter far more than the backup.
I guess.
Okay, so intangibles. We have. I don't have much. Both of them have past playoff failures to draw from. Last year, both Dallas and Vegas fell in a very dramatic fashion. I feel like Vegas being able to gain past Demko in that dramatic moment in Game 7 was really important. But Dallas being able to nullify Colorado's offense in Game 7 was equally important. So, coaching,
I think that the biggest things that has carried their teams and is going to, if they're going to make it to the cup final, is going to have to continue, is each of their young number one D-men that are one of the top playoff scorers, the leading scorers on their team, and doing great night after night.
Yeah.
Right? Is Heiskanen and Theodore. And if one of them fails to produce, the whole team is going to start coming to a stop, and it's really going to affect them. And the team that the young defenseman doesn't fail will win. Now, if they both play to the standard that they've been playing to, then it could be a very close and tightly matched playoff series, which I see going to 7 games.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure on who I think could win. But I'll think about it here.
Yeah, so offense, we said neither. Although, thinking about it, I'm probably going to give the slight edge to Vegas. Defense,
I was thinking
I said neither, but now that I've thought about it, Dallas. Goaltending, Vegas. And tangibles, neither. So my series pick, Vegas in 7.
I feel like it could be Vegas, but I also feel like it could be Dallas. I feel like it's going either way.
Uh-huh. Factor in the fact that Dallas already has the first game as well.
Because Dallas won the first game and things, I'm going to say it's a tough one. I really don't know, to be honest. I'm going to say Vegas in 7 games.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like so close. I want to say Dallas, but at the same time I want to say Vegas. Anyways.
Okay, so we got a Vegas-Tampa Cup final. Well, once we get to the Cup final, we'll do, obviously, those predictions, that is. So moving on now, we are going to be talking about the Jake Allen trade that went down. So, Josiah, break down that trade for us.
So, basically what you have is you've got Jake Allen, who is on a 1-year deal.
Okay.
Was quite a good backup this year for the Blues. Played about 20 games, had about a .920 save percentage, and fairly half-decent goals against average from what I remember.
Yeah.
So he's got 1 year left, and he's got I think he's earning about $4 million, slightly over, like 4.3. So, and the Canadians have cap space, so they can take it on. The Blues are looking to re-sign Pietrangelo and Dunn and different things, and they still have Binnington. They could be looking to get a backup, maybe. Like, maybe they get Godobin or something.
I think first they're going to give one of their goalies a chance. There's been one in the AHL. Like, I think his name is Vile Husso.
Maybe they do that, too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he's been marinating in the AHL long enough here. I feel like they're going to give him at least a shot at the backup role. I feel like he's earned it.
The only thing I see, though, is them signing a guy like Godobin, is he proves he can also be a starter. He can play, 40 games.
Yeah, and I haven't really factored that in. I feel like you gotta at least give Husso a chance, though, before you go out and get a backup goalie. Like, I don't think trading for one would be ridiculously hard.
I think that what they could do, like Godobin or something, and then because the way Binnington was playing in the playoffs kind of worries me for them. So if Binnington starts playing to his old self again, then you trade Godobin or whatever and get some picks or something.
Okay, so that Allen trade, so he was traded to the Canadians. I don't think you ever even once said that. You never actually said what the trade was at all.
I will.
Yeah.
So the Canadians sent a 2020 third-round pick and a 2020 seventh-round pick for Jake Allen, as I said.
Yep.
On the 1-year, $4.4 million deal.
Yep.
Give or take a few hundred K.
Yep.
And a 2022 seventh-round pick. Honestly, I feel like the seventh-round picks are kind of pointless, and they should have just done a third for Allen, but I guess the 2027 round pick I
The Blues weren't doing this for the return, though. They were trying to get rid of the cap, because Allen is worth at least a second-rounder in my mind.
Maybe, but I feel like this trade gives them a chance to build up some picks, which then could give them a couple, maybe that third rounder turn into a half-decent prospect.
Or you just trade the pick. That's what contenders do.
The team is getting slightly older, so maybe they trade the pick, or maybe they keep the pick. That will be for them to decide. But anyways, I say Montreal wins this trade.
I say both teams win.
Both win a trade.
Yeah.
It benefits both teams, because Montreal is looking to go into that kind of contender mode.
Yep. And they have the cap space to take them on.
The Blues are trying to make sure that they don't fall out of that contender mode.
And that they don't lose Pietrangelo.
Price is getting older, and in the playoffs he started to falter a little bit because he was playing like every single game, and they didn't have an actual backup. Allen comes in here, and he played as a starter and did pretty good. And kind of gives them that number 2 guy that can also play. Like Price, I think that the way they'll do it is probably Price playing about 50, and Allen playing the remainder of those games. But time will tell. If Price really starts to falter, then Allen could play upwards of 35.
Well, Price revived his game once we got to the playoffs. So I feel like if Price can continue to play like that, they won't reduce him to 50 games.
Yeah, probably. If he plays like he did, they'll probably want to still not have him play all the games. So he'll probably only play 55 to 60.
Yep.
And Allen, knowing that they have an actual good backup that can win games.
Yep.
I feel like Montreal has a lot of picks. It doesn't really bother them at all what they traded. And the Blues need that cap. So I think it benefits both teams. There's not really a clear winner at this point.
Yep.
But we'll obviously see. If that pick turns into like some superstar, then obviously the Blues win the trade. But if that pick turns out to be a bust and Allen is a great fit with the Canadians, then maybe he signs an extension.
Yeah. Would Allen, if he signed an extension, do you think he would get an increase in salary or a decrease?
For sure, the Canadians wouldn't sign him for more than he's getting now, especially with Price being signed long term.
Yeah.
They would, if anything, he'll be a slight decrease. Because of the flat cap, I would think that they would sign a 3-year, $4 million deal, $3.5 million deal. That he would be their backup for a while. He'd be their backup, and
I think it all depends on how he plays this year. Like, obviously, if he sucked, they're probably not even going to sign him to an extension. Period. If he did really well, like even to this year, if not better, then I'd say he could get a slight pay hike. Like, he's getting paid 4.1, by the way. So like up to like 4.5, like a slight increase. Because in the open market, players always get their values overvalued. So.
And if he plays up to like the level that like say Markstrom did, I know Allen's save percentage is better, but if Allen has to play in that starter role and he's really good, and then he needs to get $6.5 million, then I think he falls out of the Canadiens' budget. And they'll have to find a new backup. Yeah,
but they're not gonna keep, like, Allen's not gonna be the starter in Montreal, so that's an irrelevant argument.
But
not unless Price got injured or whatever and got like out for the remainder of the year.
Moving on.
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the Blues then. So the Blues with this trade have invested all of their trust in Allen, or not in Allen, Binnington. So what do you think of that?
I think it's a scary thing because, sure, Binnington played good this year in the regular season. Last year in the regular season, he played amazing. Playoffs, he was good. This year in the playoffs, absolutely atrocious. That's part of the reason the Blues lost in 6 games.
Not part of it. He's, like, almost the entire reason.
Not to mention the Blues also weren't playing super good. Like, they weren't playing as a...
Yeah, but when Allen was in net, they won 2 of their 3 games.
Yeah.
With him in net. So, like, the Blues didn't win any games with Binnington in net. So...
because I think Binnington had like an 8.76 save percentage or something. Just terrible.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're expecting him to bounce back, but the good thing for them, though, is Binnington only has 1 year left on his deal, so if he turns out to be completely terrible, then they can try to trade for a half-decent starter, like a guy like, say, like they go to the Islanders and grab a guy like Simon Vallermo or somebody if they don't get a backup, and that way they can somewhat stay in contender mode, and then once Binnington goes out, they can try to get a good goalie in free agency or trade for a true starter.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the thing is the Binnington $4.4 million gives them, if he does good, obviously, he gets an extension.
Yeah.
Doesn't, then you give him, you know, maybe he wants to stay with them as a backup and he signs like a $2 million deal or something. But if he plays bad, like he did in the playoffs, most likely his career could even be over. But I don't think his career would be over necessarily, but if he plays not very good, I think a team would sign him to a 1 year league minimum deal and see if he could bounce back.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, I definitely am a little worried about the Blues doing this. I can understand why they would do this, because Binnington is supposed to be their starter, and as much as I don't trust Binnington nearly as much as I did at the beginning of the year, or even at the beginning of the playoffs, I trust Allen even less. Like, I don't know if you remember how bad Allen was as the Blues starter, but he was bad. So...
It was bad for 1 year, and it wasn't actually that bad. It was a .906 save percentage.
That's bad. That is a bad save.
Not great, but
that's bad.
I'm just saying he had a lot of pressure on him, and the fact that people say he was terrible...
He developed for like 6, 7...
He had a bounce back year, in my opinion, this year.
He'd been developed like a long time, because he was supposed to be that guy. Once, like, Elliott was gone, like, and he did really well with the platoon role with Brian Elliott, and so when Elliott left, everyone expected Allen to be a good starter, because that's kind of what he had led them to believe, and then he wasn't. It turns out he can only be a platoon guy max, so I think, like, you couldn't have traded away Binnington and just left Allen in the starting role. That wouldn't have worked, so I don't think they have any choice but to just hope that Binnington bounces back. And I think with his demeanor, he'll get an off-season, like, even last year when they won the Cup, almost immediately he was back training with his trainer, so after a year, like, where he wasn't very good in the playoffs, I feel like Binnington's going to be looking at tons of film, he's going to be trying to fix what went wrong, and I think next year he'll be back and he'll be a very good goalie.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's think positive here for the Blues.
It's a very, if Binnington bounces back and they're able to keep their D-core together, then they go back in and maybe take another Stanley Cup run. But Binnington doesn't bounce back, then that's a really scary thought for the Blues. But,
yeah, for sure. All right, so moving on here. So there are some rumors about Matt Murray. So what do you think of those, Josiah? And first,
so there's a rumor that he could go, that the Oilers are close to getting him. As an Oilers fan, that would be great. Apparently, if the Oilers are going to get him, though, then they have to get rid of Koskinen, which I could see. The thing with Koskinen is he's a good goalie.
He's a platoon goalie.
He's a very good goalie, hot and cold. So, like,
he would
be a great goalie for a team, say, like, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Maybe the Bruins.
I can describe this, all right? He's an inconsistent 40-game platoon goalie. Waste all these words. Like, just say what you need to say.
Yeah, he's not on a terrible contract.
Not as bad as like Chiarelli should have been fired due to it. should have been fired earlier.
That was the last straw.
Yeah, I know.
Based off of what he did here, I don't think he's worth $4.5 million. I still think he's worth like $4 million, maybe. Because people, as much as people can say that he's terrible, he actually can be a very good goalie. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but in the beginning of the year, he was like a dark horse for the Vezina. Like, when he's on, he's amazing, and he's one of the best goalies in the league. But then there's times when he's off. So he's only good if you have another goalie. He can be that starter, but then you have to have that other goalie there that once he starts to falter a little bit, that you can slot that other goalie in there for a few games until Koskinen can come in and bounce back. If Koskinen's your only guy, and he'll be great sometimes and terrible other times. So he's a great option for a team that has a goalie of similar caliber.
And that's why he'd be a good idea in Pittsburgh, because Jari's kind of in the same boat as well. I don't know how much I trust Jari to be a good starter. Obviously, Murray's the one getting traded. So I feel like if you just had Jari and Koskinen together, just going back and forth, and then they all get their good games, I think that's a decent deal for Pittsburgh, along with them probably getting some much-needed like pits or prospects or someone like that.
I think they could get like a guy like Tyler Benson and maybe a third or fourth round pick thrown in there. The only thing for me is Koskinen this year had a .917 save percentage. Matt Murray started to bounce back a little at the end of the year. Obviously, the season ended, and Matt Murray only had a .900 save percentage, which is not nearly as good. So because of that, I don't think that Pittsburgh, not to mention Koskinen is locked up for another 2-year deals on a somewhat half-decent deal. I mean, obviously, like I said, he's overpaid by probably $500K. Versus Murray is an pending RFA.
Murray's not going to get that much more. Like, he's not.
But I think Murray in Pittsburgh is just kind of done. I think Murray is tired of the Penguins' terrible defense, which is, I think, part of the reason they're not able to...
Yeah, well, the Oilers' defense isn't much better, so...
I mean, look at it that way, but in 3 years, the Oilers' defense will be among the top, one of the best in the league. Like, the only D-man they have, like, all of their D-men, the oldest D-man they have, I think, is the oldest D-man they have now that's playing in their top 4 would be Adam Larson, and he's only 27. So, and honestly, I could easily see him being traded. I could see any of those top 4 D-men being traded. The only one I would probably scratch would be Ethan Bear, just because of how high of a potential he has, being only 22 and having this year where he got like 20-some points and played great defensively and played like 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
I think he's the only guy that the Oilers, unless they're getting like a really good return, are not going to sign. Like, not because they'd be shooting themselves in the foot. Like, next year he's probably going to... I don't think he's going to be a guy. I think he's going to be a really good defensive defenseman. He'll probably be a 40-point guy. And who knows, in 2 or 3 years, he could be a dark horse for the North. Like, I don't think anybody would be super surprised based on what we saw of him this year.
But back to the Matt Murray rumors. Do you like them? Like, if the Oilers acquired him, would you be like, yes, or like, oh no?
If they acquired him and shipped Koskinen out in that exchange, I think it'd be good. If they're keeping Koskinen and signing Murray, then that gets a little scary with the cap. I think what they do is they do Koskinen, like Benson,
think about it like this. So if say the Penguins get him not the Penguins, the Oilers get him signed for say 5.5 for Murray, maybe 6. I think that would be fair for Murray.
I think he'd be more. How old is he now? 25.
Quiet. You also have to base it on his resume too. He has a lot better of a resume than Koskinen. So, like,
I know, but
but that's factored into a contract. We're trying to be realistic here. So, say he gets like 6, spending 10.5 on your goalies is not bad at all. A lot of teams do way worse than that.
That's good, but like, I don't think that, like, if Ken Holland wants to put a bunch of money in the goalies, forget getting Matt Murray. He'll just go out and get Leonard or Markstrom. If you don't want to put a lot of money in your goaltenders.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just let go. Like, I don't see any scenario where Smith is re-signed. even if he like stays in the NHL. I don't see any scenario.
No, he's getting league minimum if he does get re-signed.
Yeah, but it's probably not to the Oilers. I wouldn't see a point for the Oilers yet keeping him.
I wouldn't see a point. I think Smith hasn't won a cup, and the only way he resigns is if he signs a 1-year, $700K or so deal with a team that needs a backup. What would a team be that's a cup contender that could use him?
He would have to be like a backup that's not playing that many games, though, because he's not going to be like a 30-game guy, you know? So, I think a guy like...
I feel like he's
Well, what about with Tampa?
Yeah, because he has played there before.
He hasn't played there before.
Another thing with him is he has been a starter in the past. I'm not saying that he's starter level, but I think in a backup position, I think he's not worth the most he would play in would be 30 games. The nice thing about having him is he was a starter in the past, so you have a guy that if that gets injured, he can play a few games.
Yeah, but when Smith is hot, he is like on fire, like ridiculous. When he's on his game, like it's amazing how well he can do. But when he's off his game, he's horrendous. So that's the problem.
But if he's getting paid $700K and he doesn't turn out for Tampa, what do they care?
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like
they're trying to get blood out of a stone right now. So maybe they trade Curtis McKinney and get
Curtis McElhinney.
Well, anyways, maybe they trade him and try to get Smith to replace him, because Smith would get more like $700,000, whereas Curtis is getting paid 1.3. That's $600K. That's not a lot, but it's still somewhat of a cap. And if anything, Smith could be a upgrade.
Yeah, I don't know. McElhinney is a decent backup, but
for sure, but he's definitely not.
Moving on to our next subject. So you had a few NHL rumors you wanted to talk about.
Well, it necessarily wasn't rumors. It was just like ideas. So the idea was that like the Jets and the Oilers could be almost like a trading partner kind of deal.
Okay. Where
the Jets ship out Laine or Ehlers, and the Oilers ship out Nurse.
Yeah.
And obviously Nurse is, like I was talking about it with Joshua, and Nurse is a number 2 demon, and the Jets are dire need of demon. Nurse would be a great fit there. Excuse me. Can slide in there on their first or second pair and play great. It gives them a bit, like, then that gives them, on the left side, that gives them a good amount of, because they also have Josh Morrissey, so then they have their 2 left side demon, and then they only have to find a right demon, and that really puts them, if they get Nurse, that puts them leaps and bounds from where they were last season in terms of defense personnel. The only thing is, and they have so many good wingers, it's not even funny, right? Like, they have Wheeler, they have Ehlers, they have Laine, they have Connor. Like, they can afford to give up one of these guys in exchange to get a really good demon.
Yep.
Not to mention, if they trade Ehlers to the Oilers, I say Ehlers because I don't think the Oilers would necessarily be as interested in Laine, and that because of that amount of high potential, but also the cap space, something the Oilers I don't think are going to be super interested in, especially with Yammer and Hopkins needing a bit of, like, Hopkins probably needing a new raise of about $1 to $1.5 million, and Yammer going to be getting $5 to $7 million based on how he does next year, but that would be, like, the trade would probably go down around probably the rights to Benning, the rights to Anthony, and Anthony has proved in the past he was a 30-goal guy. That gives them a guy that can, obviously a downgrade from Ehlers, but a guy that can still, if you put him on the second line, maybe still give them somewhat of a replacement for Ehlers. And then they also get Nurse. And then Benning is a good, like, third pair man that gives them a bit more depth on D. And then maybe the Oilers throw in a 3rd or 4th round pick, which gets a bit of, if they find another need, that gives them a bit of trading power. And back on the Oilers side, they they don't Benning. I think I don't think Athanasiou. He was obvious. I think the Oilers could keep Athanasiou, but I don't think they will. Obviously, Ehlers is the Oilers need that top six winger that will play the McDavid. I think Ehlers and McDavid together would just be dynamite. I think Ehlers was almost a point per game this year, and he was playing on the Jets' top line, or maybe their second line. He might have been playing on their second line.
Yeah.
He's now going to be going in and he's going to be playing with McDavid. He's going to be he should get 80 points and 35 goals. I mean, this trade, I think, benefits both teams. It gives the Jets somewhat of a replacement for Ehlers. It gives the Oilers. It also gives the Oilers a bit of extra cap space so that they're able to deal with their goaltender. So I think a trade like that would really benefit both teams, and I would be really happy if the Oilers did that. Obviously, the main person I'd be sad to see go is Nurse, because he is the closest thing the Oilers have to a number one demon. But with Bouchard, Broberg, and Bear all coming up, and you still have Larson and Klefbom there, and maybe you get another guy like people were saying that Barry could potentially sign a deal. I think Barry's going to get like a 1-year, $5 million deal, so that gives the Oilers another demon, right? So yeah. I don't know. What do you think of that? What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think it's a really good deal on both sides. Winnipeg gets that offense back, for sure.
I think it obviously does affect their offense somewhat, but the Jets need that defense, and I think Benning and that we'll say it's a fourth round pick, are sort of just like a little bit of a sweetener. I think the main thing though is you look at Athanasiou and Nurse. You see Athanasiou, who's only 25, you get the rights to, probably signs a 1 or 2 year deal at $3 million. If you're the Jets, I don't know if Athanasiou likes the idea of playing for the Jets. Maybe he signs a 1 year deal, tries to prove himself, and then that's the final year before he comes. Because if they sign a 2 year deal, then he'll be a UFA. But if you only sign him for a 1 year deal, then he's an RFA, which gives them a good. If he proves himself, gets 25 goals and 45 points, then he proves himself, and the Jets lock him up long term at 5 years at $5 million per se or something.
Yeah. Okay, so my last topic for this week's podcast is, so with the Allen trade, and which is obviously an attempt by the Blues to clear cap room in order to sign Pietrangelo, what are the chances of Pietrangelo re-signing with the Blues?
I think 90%.
Whoa. So the only problem I have with 90% is that first the Blues have to clear more cap room. They don't have the cap room right now. Not even close.
So here's the way that the Blues protect them. Say Pietrangelo wants to take this. The Blues are definitely a great team. With or without Pietrangelo, they're still a playoff team.
Yeah.
With Pietrangelo, though, they're a contender. And Pietrangelo's their captain. He's been there his entire career. I think he might be willing to take a slight pay cut.
Yeah, a slight pay cut, though, is not $4.5 million. He's not taking.
I think anywhere else in the league, you would get about $9.5 million.
Yep.
I think, though, maybe that he signs a long-term. I don't know if a team wants to sign him for 7 years, though, because he's 30 years old.
Yeah, well, teams haven't had an issue with that in the past with, not Tavares, because Tavares was, 3 years younger, but, Panarin.
Panarin was only 28.
He's 20. He's not on the verge of 29. So
that's still that's almost a year. That's over a year. My point is though, maybe if he takes a discount though, he wants maybe the Blues sign him to a. I think it would be more. So here's two options. Maybe he signs an 8-year deal with the Blues at $7 million. I don't think that would happen. What I think a more likely scenario would be 7 years at $8 million. Which. Now, the thing is with right now, if the Blues find a way to get rid of Bozak,
and
they can keep Pietrangelo and Dunn, or if they get rid of if they re-sign Pietrangelo at $8 million, would you be willing to pull up how much cap space they have left?
Would I be willing to what?
Pull up how much cap space the Blues have left. Do you know how much they have left? They'll have this year, based off of their current trajectory.
They have under $1 million. They don't have a lot right. Well, with Allen gone, they have about 4.7.
I thought they had more than that.
No, they have, like, before Allen, they had, like, no cap space. Don't forget they also have to sign, like, Vince Dunn. They have other guys to sign, too.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure they had more than that. I thought they had more. I'm going to say that they have 8 or 9 million in cap, but maybe they have less than that. That's just the way if Petrangelo does resign there, I could see a deal like 7 years at 8 million going down or something.
The way I see it, in order for the Blues to sign Petrangelo and Dunn's like the only major other guy, they'd have to get at least 12 million in cap space. That means they'd have to clear out like 10 more. So, does that mean they want to clear out a guy like Tarasenko? The Blues clearly played pretty well without him this year. He had like 9... Tarasenko is getting paid like 9 million. Like
7.5.
No, is it worth doing it to keep Petrangelo? For sure. I would trade Tarasenko to keep Petrangelo.
The only problem I have is the Blues were not great in offense. And Tarasenko,
either, so.
If he was in his 30-goal, 70-point form, he'll get you a great return. At his form right now, where he's getting injury after injury, he's not even going to be ready for next year's regular season.
One injury is not injury after injury. He had one injury that lasted a long time.
And then he just recently got re-injured, and they'll reassess it in 5 months, which this regular season is going to be up and started in probably 20, 25 games in. So,
yeah.
How much value? And he hasn't played. He played a few games in the playoffs and didn't look like his old self. A team, and he's signed for $7.5 million for probably a good amount of years. Is a team really going to want to take that contract on?
Yeah, that's
from the Blues side. They're going to have, if they want to get rid of that contract, they're giving up at least a first-round pick, if not more.
Well, I don't know about that. Tarasenko's still a pretty darn good player when he's playing. Like in the regular season before he got injured, he was a point per game. So
10 games though.
Yeah, 21.
And
that's a big enough
James Neal was on pace to get 40 goals in the first bit of the regular season. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, Neal hit a hot streak. Tarasenko was actually showing his true form. Neal was not.
Yeah, but Tarasenko he got injured.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a hot streak and just playing like your normal self. Tarasenko was playing like his normal self, and Neal was hitting a hot streak. So there's a difference between the two. And Neal lasted for 15 games or something on that streak? Tarasenko lasted longer.
Tarasenko lasted 10 games because then he got injured.
No, he got longer than that.
No, it wasn't, I'm pretty sure, but that's beside the point. The point is the team willing, in the playoffs, he didn't look like his true self. He's injured again. If he wasn't injured, and even if he didn't play his true self in the playoffs, and he comes in, I still think he has some value. Like, you wouldn't get much of a return for him. You could probably still get like a first round pick out of him. In his old self, I think he'd be worth like a lot, like a first round pick, a really good prospect, and a middle six player. Now, I think he'd be worth the Blues giving up. All they get would be a third round pick.
Okay. All right. Well, that's gonna
mostly because.
All right. Well, that's gonna conclude our latest episode of the J&J Hockey Podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Josiah.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.